Is the Nissan Murano a good buy? There's a lot of these out there for really cheap, but you might find out they're cheap for a reason. What's wrong with this one? Let's get started. This is a 2013 Nissan Murano, and it's in because the customer's concerned about the brake fluid being really low. They think they've lost a lot of brake fluid all at once. And there's also a strange noise coming from the front left wheel. It sounds like a chain being drug or something like that. Kind of a metallic jangling noise. But through the inspection, checking this thing over, Junior Met found so much more wrong. So much so that the customer said, fix the brakes. I'm going to have to think about the rest. I don't know yet. Let's take a look around this Murano. Here's the front of the Murano, and when they were new, they actually were a pretty nice vehicle. But the hands of time have not bode well for this vehicle. One thing you can see is the fog lamp is missing on the driver's side, and it's currently being held on with looks like a wood screw or something and some glue with the front bumper cover. The wheels are a little dirty, and this side of the body looks decent. It's not rusted or beat up or anything like that. And around the back is equally as nice. But we're going to walk around the other side, and there's a surprise on the front right fender. It looks like Wolverine kind of took a swipe at their car. Let's go ahead and jump under the hood. Luckily the hood struts are still holding on this one, but it is the 3.5 V6, and as far as engines go, I am a fan of the Nissan 3.5 V6. They're pretty strong, they last a long time, and they're very powerful for their size. We really don't have a lot to do on this one with the engine. The engine seems to be running fine. But one thing we're going to look at, which is currently fixed, is the brake fluid reservoir. When it came in was way down here. It was very, very low. And the customer was concerned that they've lost a lot of brake fluid. Something dangerous could be occurring.
That has got to be the smallest little reservoir I think I've ever seen for brake fluid. What's going on?
It's actually an auxiliary reservoir to the main reservoir. If you follow the hose from this reservoir, it goes back to the master cylinder. It has a little tiny reservoir, so it's a way to move the filling of this out here where you can get to it easier. It is kind of strange. But like I mentioned, we don't have any major issues with the engine or transmission. Luckily, those are running just fine. Let's let Mrs. Wizard give you guys an interior review, and we're going to talk about what we found wrong with this, and we'll get it on the lift and show it to you.
Welcome, ladies and gents. This has 182,042 miles. Wow, that's quite a bit of miles on here. But the gauge cluster looks really nice. It does have a push button start, and it's telling me push the brake and then push the start button. But obviously we're not going to be doing that because we don't really want the car to run yet. But let's go ahead and turn everything off so we can continue our review. As we move up to the dash, we'll see everything looks good. Looks like they have a Bose system stereo in here, but everything is looking nice. Nothing cracked, nothing really terribly broken or anything. Don't see too much wear and tear, especially all of our numbers and letters are showing there. Everything is looking very, very nice. The HVAC controls and our radio controls there are rather minimalistic, very simplistic in fashion, so easy to use. We do have some creature comforts down there with heated seats, and we also can lock our differential with our all-wheel drive. You can see this is an automatic, and we have a nice little hidey hole spot here with nothing but a little bit of dust and a wrapper in there, but it works and holds. Got our water bottle there and some change, but again, looking really nice. Have a little bit of a flaw right here in our armrest, but looking good otherwise. Oh, good, they left a snack for me as well, but opens and closes nicely. Actually, everything in here, the seats included, are dark charcoal gray, but looking good, nothing ripped, nothing torn. They do have the back seat in cargo mode, so the seats are laid down, and you can see this actually can hold a lot in here when you need to actually move some material around. Headliner's looking good. We can see that the headliner is a nice soft dove gray color, so not everything is dark charcoal in here. And we're back at the steering wheel with all of our standard buttons we expect to see on every car on the road today with our lovely Nissan logo in the center. So enough of this interior talk. Let's get this on the lift and see what's going on underneath.
Before I get this car on the lift, just kind of give you a heads up, it only came in for brake fluid being low and a clanking noise going around the front. Like I said, it's currently been fixed. It has new rotors and pads all the way around. We're going to find out why we did that and also show you the rest of the story. Let's get this thing on the lift. So here we are underneath this Murano, and one thing that surprises me is both the engine oil pan and the transmission oil pan are dry. Let's take a look. Nothing's leaking, no valve cover leaks. And we move over to the transmission, is equally dry. Actually, I'm really happy to see that. I'm glad this is not leaking on the customer. But as we take a look and we go to the wheels, we can see the CV boot is split and starting to sling grease all over by the serpentine belt. And it's going to need a new CV shaft here. And then we also see this sway bar link isn't even connected to anything, guys. Look at that. The sway bar is not sway barring. It's not doing sway bar things anymore. Okay. I don't have to check the brakes. That's already been fixed. And I'll show you over here. It has new pads and rotors. You see a brand new rotor there, brand new pads. But look at this, guys. It's full of dirt. You can see the sand in there. All inside of that joint is damaged. This one will also need a new CV shaft. And this sway bar link is not broken off yet, but it's not far from it. It's pretty loose. We'll talk about the brakes here in a minute. Let's finish up our inspection. Our exhaust is all intact. Our catalytic converter is there. Here's our drive shaft, which this is an all-wheel drive, so this is sending power to the rear from the little transfer case there. Here's our fuel tank, which kind of saddles over the drive shaft. When we come back to the differential, everything looks good there, no leaks. The little CV boots, which are really tiny, appear to be in good shape. CV boots are good there. Sway bar links are good. But our shock, as you can see here, is leaking really bad, and the other side is even worse. New brakes and pads back here, like I mentioned. Sway bar link is good, CV boots are good, but look at this shock, guys. It is bad. Very, very bad. This one's completely blown out. So we found more on top of the complaint of the rattling noise and low brake fluid. Let's get this thing on the ground and talk about it. So here we are. I just brought a few of the brakes over from the old rotors and pads. The first issue I want to talk about is that the brake fluid was low. They were concerned that it had leaked out somewhere. Well, the thing is when you use your brakes, it starts to wear the pads, and as the caliper piston protrudes further and further as the pads are wearing more and more, it takes more fluid out of the reservoir to keep it at that position. You can get your pads so thin that the fluid level will drop in half almost. It looks like you lost a lot of fluid. You didn't. Let's take a look at these pads here. You can see that they weren't too far away from getting into the metal. Very, very thin, probably 5% remaining, maybe a little less. The sad thing with the rotor is we were going to resurface them, but we measured. It's a very deep valley. You can feel it with your fingers. When you measure here, it's at the minimum thickness, and if we resurface it, we will be below the minimum thickness, which means this is unsafe. All rotors have to be replaced. So many people wonder, how do you just visually look at the brake pads and tell how thick they are? What I'm looking at is the distance between the metal on the pad and the rotor itself, which is this gap. I can put my screwdriver. That's the distance I'm looking at. It should be way up here. And you can see that the metal is getting very close to touching the rotor. That would be a situation I would look at these brakes and say, we got 5% remaining, it's time for pads. And sadly we had to do rotors as well. It's not sad, it just raises the bill. And so that explains why their fluid dropped, because as soon as we put new rotors and pads on and compress the calipers to fit the new pads, all of a sudden the fluid level was back full again. So it never lost any fluid. It was kind of deceiving. The second issue was a jangly metallic sound. They were wondering what that was. It was also related to these brakes being worn so thin that you can see a shiny rub spot on, this is called a squeaker or wear indicator. It'll actually rub on the rotor while you're driving to indicate you're getting dangerously low, just like this.
Yeah, sir, it stopped that. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
So that was kind of the noise they were hearing. Once we got the new pads and rotors on, the noise was gone, the reservoir was full. Killed two birds with one stone. Now we called the customer and told them we figured out what's wrong with your brake situation with the low fluid, and just like I just explained to you, and the customer understood. We gave them the prices of that, which was going to be between the $700 and $900 range, each rotor being $70 or $80 each. Again, they're worn so thin we cannot resurface them. They have to get new ones. And the pads are $60, $70 for the front, and same for the rear. And then you got the labor, and it starts to add up pretty quick. But then we started quoting more for CV shafts, which again, that alone is a 3-hour job. Do both CV shafts and the cost of the shafts. And then we have sway bar links. Then we have rear shocks that are blown out. And we're telling them $2,000 to $3,000 range. We could be getting into that area, hopefully on the lower end. And like I mentioned, I usually quote high in case there's some unforeseen parts or something that we didn't see once we get it apart. That way we don't blow through the budget. Usually we come under our estimates. But at that rate, $2,000 to $3,000 range, the customer said, go ahead and do the brakes. I really got to think about the rest. I don't know if I want to do it or not. Is it worth it? I would say it is. If it's still running and driving fine, to get the sway bars doing sway bar things again, shocks that aren't blown out, CV shafts that aren't going to shell out, why not? But you can only fix what the customer approves. We kind of know what shocks do. If they go out, the thing will bounce up and down endlessly and it'll make you seasick. But what does a sway bar do? A sway bar is when you're kind of in a turn and the body rolls. It kind of keeps it from rolling too much and keeps the body as stable as it can. If those get broken, like this one is currently broken off, when you go to lean into a corner, the body can roll way more than it should. And it could actually make traction issues or steering issues if you're not used to it, or in your wet weather or slick roads. It can really cause some issues. The sway bars are there for a reason. They really need to be connected. The sway bar doesn't bolt directly to the body or the suspension. It uses a sway bar link, which is that little steel rod I just showed you that was broken. When those go bad, the sway bar is no longer connected to the suspension. It's just hovering there. Some of these things have happened over time. Like the CV shafts, you don't really feel it, you don't hear it. It's slinging grease, especially on the driver's side, really heavily into the wheel. The inside of the wheel is coated in grease and sand and dirt. But you don't hear it or feel it until it finally fails and starts clicking or making noises during a turn, or just comes apart and causes a very serious issue. The rear shocks you might kind of notice because they're kind of bouncy or floaty in the back. And the sway bar links, if you're not really paying attention, you may not notice that they're broken. These things can happen over time. That's why you kind of got to get your vehicle in for regular inspections, oil changes. Have them checked over because things can start happening that you can catch before it breaks and does the domino effect and causes this to break and that to break, and the price escalates really fast. Now with the situation with the brake fluid, it's probably they haven't really looked at the fluid level in a long time. And when they finally decided to one day, they were under the hood, hey, let's check the brake fluid. They were like, oh my God, it's half gone. I got to get this to the shop. So there really wasn't anything wrong, but I'm glad they brought it because as we saw, the pads were almost down to metal contact, and that's bad. There are shops out there, and a lot of them sadly, and we see it a lot of times when customers bring their cars from other shops with huge cooked up bills where you need to replace this and this and this and this and this and this, and we go to inspect it and find out that half the things on that list aren't even bad. There's such a minimal amount of wear it's not worth even talking about. They're just looking to drum up a bigger bill. But if you find a reputable shop, an honest mechanic, and they tell you these things are bad, you probably should do them. Again, with this situation, as you saw with your own eyes, we're not just drumming up the bills. We're saying, hey, this stuff's broke. And that's the thing you got to keep in mind when you go to the shop. You have one or two things on your mind. Okay, one or two items, it's going to be $500, $800, whatever you think it's going to be. And then you get the gut punch, like this situation. You didn't feel that the other things were failing. You didn't even know. And now all of a sudden it's like, what? All that is broken? Yes. If you have a reputable mechanic, you trust your mechanic, ask them, prioritize the list. What's the most important thing I should fix right now? and then see if I can span it out. I'll bring it back at a later date. We'll tackle the other items. And I get that. I understand. As long as there is a game plan to get the things fixed and they don't just do the blinders on the horse and say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to spend the money. We'll just pretend it didn't happen. Your car's still broke, even if you put the blinders on. Of the things that are currently broken on this car, the number one thing I would fix is obviously the brakes, because if they fail or if it goes to metal-metal contact, a piston could pop out because it's overextended so much, you could cause an accident. So brakes, definitely. And that's what we've done here. We've done the brakes first. Then I would jump into the CV shafts. Then I would do the rear shocks and sway bar links, kind of in that order. That would work really well. Now let's talk about the question we have at the beginning of the video. Is the Nissan Murano a good car? And I would say no, unfortunately. Any of the 2004, 5, 6, on up to 2015, the Nissans are not known to have the highest quality. They're not the worst. They're not like a Kia or a Hyundai. They're not that bad. But once they get up to 100, 120,000 miles, they can almost be as bad as a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW and start really nickeling and diming you. This one has 180,000 miles, and luckily they don't have any major engine issues or transmission issues, but things are really starting to creep up on this car. And the thing you got to keep in mind is the value of these things is not very high because of the reasons I just told you. So if you rack up a $5,000 repair bill on a vehicle that's worth $3,000, you can get really out of league really fast. So definitely wanted to get a video out to show you guys how you came in for 1 or 2 items and it turned into 12. How did that happen? What are you trying to do here? Trying to tell you what's wrong with your car, bro. That's all it is. You can choose to fix it or choose not to fix it, but it is what it is. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this Murano or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. A lot of the tools we use in the shop are for sale there, and if you purchase any of them, we get a small cut and really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's tons more videos coming down the line for you guys. Thanks for watching.